Hello, this is Lew again. This is a study on how Hebrew changed, the script and the way that the language was pronounced, and some of the period we're going to cover is the Dead Sea Scrolls through the time of the 1600s when the King James Version came out, and why we pronounce words so differently now that are Hebrew. I think you'll enjoy this one. How Hebrew changed. Right here in the center of the screen we see, it's a big rock. This was discovered in Shomron. They call it Samaria. There's another change, see? We call it Samaria. And who lived in Samaria? Well, the northern tribes, the rebels, the tax rebels, and during the days of Shlomo, or Solomon. See how the changes happen? The script that we see on this stone that was discovered in Samaria by the Samaritans in the rebellious temple that was built there is Hebrew, real Hebrew. This isn't Aramaic. They call it Aramaic now. Aramaic is the script of the captors that we had in Babylon. And they teach it today all over the earth. Aramaic as Hebrew script, and it's not. This is Hebrew script. That's the only one there is. It's not Egyptian, it's not Greek, it's not Latin. It's Eberith, the script and language of Eber, Abraham's great-grandfather. That's where the word Hebrew comes from. What? Hebrew? Eber? Yeah. And places were named after Hebrew words, like Danube River. Wonder who that was named after. And London. London? That's Dan. Denmark? Oh, yeah. Dan. Greece was basically founded by escaped members of the tribe of Dan during the days of the Exodus, before the Exodus. And these city-states sprang up, and who was in the horse? Remember the Trojan horse? Who was in there? Danites. Yeah. And you don't hear these things, but, the Trojans themselves were Danites. But, see, they were just at war with each other all the time. Anyway, you see four letters here, read from the right to the left in Hebrew. You see a yod there at the break. That's a yod. And then a hey, and then an ua, and then a hey. Those are four vowels. That was a stone found in Samaria. The real word is Shomron. It's a rejected stone, too, because it has the name on it. It's not the rejected stone. The name is the rejected stone. The builders rejected it. Psalm 118, we covered that. Anyway, the majority of the alterations of the Hebrew language and names in words seem to come after the 8th century CE. That's AD. In the 8th century, around 767, there was a break among the Yahudim were divided at Babel, and due to an argument between two brothers that wanted to both be the chief rabbi. But they had a caliph over them, an Islamic caliph, and the older brother was arrested for sedition, rebellion. He was going to be put to death. And that's another story. But anyway, these things occurred during the 8th century CE, and the phonetic cues that were added by these symbols that were invented. I'll show you those in a moment. They put these symbols around the Aramaic script, or Aramaic script, called a Masoretic script, and they skewed the language to avoid actually pronouncing the real name, Yahuwah, which is four vowels. We showed them to you. Now, these phonetic cues were to divert the reader to say something else. And they invented these things as vowels. They didn't exist anywhere until this 8th century. And they came from Babel, as did the script, Aramith. The little twiddly diddles are called nukud marks, causing a reader of the name of Yahuwah to say another word, Adonai, or more properly, Aduni. That's the real word. Masoretic vowels look like this among Aramith script. The Aramaic letters with nukud marks look like these little symbols that you see here. They're words. They're actually transliterated Hebrew, but they're not. It's not a translation. It's a transliteration using a foreign script from Babel, the language of our captors. That's why they couldn't read it when Yahuwah wrote real Hebrew on the wall at Belshazzar's little party, when his knees started to get all knocky and he got scared. They had to call Daniel to read the Hebrew script. See, they wrote this. This is the script of the Babylonians. And in the 8th century CE, the Masoretes, which were a Qaraite sect, invented these little symbols to control how you pronounce words. This is not Hebrew script. It's the Hebrew language, though. It's just being mispronounced all over the world. These marks are not found prior to the 8th century CE. The Dead Sea Scrolls are over 1,000 years earlier than the Masoretic scriptures, and they have no such marks. Let's look at them. Look at this. This is Aramith, the script. You can see the characters. And then when they came to the name, Yahuwah, the 4 vowels, you see the little arrow pointing to the different script, read from right to left. That's Yod, Hey, Ua, Hey. That's Hebrew. The rest of it is Aramith. The word Hebrew is really more correctly pronounced Eberith. We talked about that earlier. Eberith. You can back this up and listen to the thing again and again until you get it. But the world is not happy about the fact that this is being exposed. I mean, can the whole world be wrong? Or is this idea wrong? I don't know. Which is it? Somebody's wrong. By the time the printing press was invented in 1450 CE, Gutenberg, and the metal type was invented to press down and print one page at a time, the English colonies were already being established all over the earth. The sun literally never set on the British Empire because they were all over the place. Many of the world's language groups began to learn to speak the English language by reading the Anglican Catholic authorized version that had been produced in 1611 CE. And it was being taught by the missionaries. This King James Version was based on the Latin Vulgate, which was a translation by Eusebius Hieronymus Sophronius. They call him Jerome, which is not his name. Anyway, it's interesting that the word Hieronymus means sacred name, or set apart name. I like to use that more. Anyway, and this was used before the King James Version for over 1,200 years, because the Anglican Catholics were Catholics. James Strong, you might remember that name, compiled his concordance by 1890. That was about 3 or 4 years before my grandmother was born. And he based his concordance on every word that was found in the King James Version and traced it back to the Greek and the Hebrew origin. And he phonetically used our Latin language, our Latin alphabet, to enunciate the letters, but it was guided by the Masoretic influences. He compiled this in 1890, and it was based on the King James Version, and he filled the world with teachers now trained by the influences of the Nukud marks invented by the Masoretes in the 8th century CE. So Yahoo became Yeho. So the prophet that we call is Isaiah. Isaiah. If you break that up, it's ISA, IAH. Well, the IAH is Yah. They kind of miss some of this sometimes. But Isaiah is not really his name. His name is Yasha Yahu. It's not Yasha Yeho. It's Yashayahu. That's the real prophet's name. See, we're talking about how Hebrew changed. Although Strong attempted to transliterate the name of Yahuwah, he landed on Jehovah. See, the V and the J and the E and the O, the vowelation, Yeho is not it. But due to the Masoretes, this influence caused him to say Yeho or Jeho. And then the V sound, that's a consonant because it's buzzing. Vowels do not buzz. The 4 vowels were written on the golden headpiece that the high priest had, and that wasn't from Babylon or Aramith. That was Hebrew, and it said Kodesh LeYahuwah on the golden headpiece. And Yahuwah was written in 4 vowels, and that is attested to in the book written by Josephus. No, Josephus is the name that they call him. His name is Yusuf. That's where they get Joseph. Yusuf ben Matithyahu. That's the historian from the 1st century. He was a follower of Yahusha. He believed he was a Mashiach. But his real name is not Josephus. That's another thing that's happened. So we know that there are 4 vowels because he said so. He saw the golden headpiece. He said they were written, the name was written in 4 vowels in the Hebrew script. He said all that in his book. So we know it wasn't Aramaic, and it didn't have any twiddly diddles or Nukud marks. But in the 1700s, the J sounded like a Y does now. They didn't have that J sound to it, that Germanic and French influence from other language groups. So it wasn't really the J that we know that, they were saying back in the 1600s. The 1600s is the 17th century, by the way. The inherited tradition of deleting the name of Yahuwah from subsequent translations is now beyond being conspicuous. In other words, it's everywhere. They don't translate with that name in it, Yahuwah. It was replaced by Lord because the King James Version used the word Dominus, which means Lord. So the King James Version said Lord. They translated the meaning of Dominus. And Dominus came from the Greek Kyrios, which means Lord. And the avoidance of using it in the Hebrew, Aduni, or Adonai as they say it today. Aduni, my sovereign, or my Lord. It means owner, but it translates from, Lord translates to Bel in Hebrew, or Baal, which is the storm deity of the Canaanites, Nimrod, the sun, whatever. But Lord is not his name. The Lord is not your shepherd. Yahuwah is your shepherd. That's what Psalm 23 says. It opens up with Yahuwah Roi. Yahuwah is my shepherd. Many odd spellings emerged for the name of Yahusha over the centuries. Some referred to as Christograms, replacement terms for the name, because the people that controlled it, the teachings, did not want you to hear the real name. Pagans were, mystagogues were controlling teachings, and they did not want you to say the name of their deity, because that would give you power over them. The Septuagint's Greek form ignored the Eberith phonology and gave us IES-OUS. Capitalizing the IES, we see it becomes IHS. And you see this all over the place. A lot of people say, that's those Egyptian Trinity things. Well, it might accidentally be that, but that's not really where IHS came from. It came from this Greek Christogram. This form was adopted by the Western Empire, IHS. That's why you see it all over the place. Another Christogram was used by the Eastern Empire, ICXC. The first one, IC, was the first and last letter in the Greek of the name that they thought was the name of the Messiah. And XC stood for the Christos. Anyway, that's what they used, and still do. Later corrupted forms developed, such as IESV. That's from the King James Version. And it got that from the Latin Vulgate, a 1,200-year-old deal that was being used with IESV written in it. It wasn't really a V, though. Remember, the V is the Latin letter U, which is another source of confusion. It's really a U. The word gladius in Latin means sword, and it's spelled with the last letters IVS, but it's pronounced ius. So you got asu here, IESU. Well, it's not really a V, it's a U, but today they read it as a V. And then you've got now JESUS, based upon these previous Latinizations, and the Arabs you call him ISA, Isa. Well, that's all I've got for you today, because I don't want to go into too much and burden you. But back this up, watch it again, watch it 3 times. Baruch haba b'shem Yahuwah. Google those words. Teach yourself. And join us at the link here, natsarimlife.com. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye.